In 1995, Tokyo was a city of neon and shadows, where the future glowed in pocket pagers, but the past clung like the stench of old blood. Takeshi Sato knows this better than anyone. A graveyard shift taxi driver haunted by his wife's disappearance. He spent 2 years searching for answers in the back seats of drunk salarymen and hollow-eyed hostesses. But the truth he finds is far worse than abandonment. When a woman in a blood-red kimono steps into his cab, her obi tied like a widow's noose, Takeshi's world unravels. His radio whispers warnings in his dead wife's voice. His taxi locks itself, and the streets of Tokyo twist into a labyrinth of pulsing webs, with a missing dangle like grotesque puppets. The city's underbelly isn't just hiding secrets, it's spinning them. Silk isn't fabric here. It's a language, a cage, a hunger, and Takeshi's already woven in. Buckle up. This ride doesn't end at dawn. 1995 Tokyo was a city of contradictions. The future was here. Glowing pagers, clunky cell phones, the first whispers of the internet. But the past clung like the smell of cigarettes in a love hotel. I should know. I spent my nights drowning in both. My name is Takeshi Sato. For 3 years, I've been driving the graveyard shift for Happy Cab Company. Not that the name meant much. Most of my passengers were drunk salarymen, hostesses with smudged mascara, or ghosts of my own making. You see, my wife, Emmy, disappeared 2 years prior, left behind a half-finished cup of tea and a single silk scarf tangled in our doorway. The cops wrote it off as walked away, but I knew silk doesn't tie itself into knots that tight. Emmy used to warn me about women in red kimonos. They're not ghosts, Takeshi, she'd say. They're landlords. And Tokyo is their rent-controlled hell. The taxi was my confession booth. A 1992 Toyota Crown with stained seats and a radio that only picked up static past midnight. I kept Emmy's photo taped to the dash, her smiling at some festival, red lanterns glowing behind her. Sometimes when the rain blurred the windshield just right, I could pretend she was still there. Other times, the Crown had a mind of its own. The locks clicked down without touching them. The odometer rolled backward. And once, after a fare from Kabukicho, I found the passenger seat damp with something that smelled like jasmine and rotting silk. That October, the city felt different. The autumn winds carried more than dead leaves. Shopkeepers whispered about missing men. Hostess clubs buzzed with rumors of a red shadow in the alley behind the pachinko parlors. Even my regulars, the chain-smoking bartender from Golden Guy, the old woman who sold stolen umbrellas, started avoiding eye contact. Then, on the 31st, the rains came. Not the gentle kind. Needles of water that turned Kabukicho's neon into liquid streaks of pink and gold. That's when I saw her for the first time. Under the flickering sign of the Hotel Mirai, a woman stood perfectly still. Her red kimono was too bright against the greasy pavement. Not the cheap polyester kind the hostesses wore. Real silk, the color of fresh blood under moonlight. She didn't wave, didn't move, just stared through the rain like she'd been expecting me. Something about the way her obi was tied. Emmy always said only widows wore it that way. The Crown's doors unlocked with a sigh. The radio spat static, then a voice. Not the dispatcher's, but Emmy's, warped as if underwater. Don't let her in. Then silence. The meter clicked on with a sound like a spider's legs tapping glass. Where to? I asked. When she smiled, the streetlight above us buzzed and died. The old shrine, she said. I have prayers to spin. The moment her kimono brushed the taxi's seats, the air changed. Not the way a storm rolls in. This was subtler. The scent of jasmine and something underneath it. The damp earth smell of a place sunlight never touches. She gave no address, just murmured directions whenever the road forked. Left at the soapland with the broken sign. Right where the vending machine's glow ended abruptly. Like someone had drawn a line, even light wouldn't cross. The Crown steering wheel vibrated under my palms. Not from the engine, but in pulses like a spider plucking a web. The faster I drove, the hotter the dashboard became, until Emmy's photo started to curl at the edges. I caught glimpses of her in the rear view. Not the way you normally see passengers. She never fidgeted, never checked her reflection. Just sat perfectly still, her fingers laced together in a way that made me think of spiders resting in their own silk. Do you believe in curses, Takeshi-san? My grip on the wheel tightened. I hadn't told her my name. Before I could answer, The radio crackled. Not static this time, whispering. Dozens of voices layered over each other, all repeating the same phrase. Look at the mirror. Look at the mirror. Look at the... Then the truck hit us. No, not hit. Roared past, so close its headlights flooded the cab. For one heartbeat, the rearview mirror showed her true face. Not human, not spider, but something caught between. Then darkness returned, and she was just a woman again, adjusting her obi. The radio fell silent. The temperature dropped, and on the windshield, where the truck spray had landed, droplets rearranged themselves into a single kanji, mi-ito, thread. Next left, she breathed, where the shadows nest. The GPS had died minutes ago. My watch had stopped at 3:03 a.m. And now we were turning onto a street I'd driven for years but didn't recognize. The buildings here leaned like drunk men, their windows boarded up with wood that pulsed faintly, as if something breathed behind it. That's when I saw the webs, not the dusty cobwebs of neglected corners. These were thick as ropes, strung between telephone poles like some grotesque festival decoration, and wrapped inside them shapes. Some small cats, maybe birds, others disturbingly human-sized. The crown's engine sputtered. The locks clicked down. Through the fog glass, I saw them, figures standing perfectly still in every doorway, their faces obscured by strands of silk. Waiting, the woman placed one pale hand on my shoulder. Her nails gleamed unnaturally sharp in the dashboard lights. Almost home, she whispered. Ahead, the road ended at a crumbling torii gate. The shrine beyond wasn't on any map. Its steps were carpeted in silk, and hanging from the rafters, dozens of cocoons, swaying gently in a wind that didn't touch the trees. The taxi died completely at the torii gate. Not a sputter, a final sigh, like the engine had been waiting to give up. The woman was already outside, her get-a sandals silent on the cracked stone steps. She didn't look back. I should have run. But the cocoons, they twitched, not from wind, from inside. The air smelled like a florist's fridge, overripe peonies and formaldehyde. My shoes stuck to the steps with every movement, as if the shrine itself was trying to hold me there. Ahead, the woman's shadow stretched too long in the lantern light, her limbs elongating like taffy as she climbed. That's when my flashlight caught the nearest one. The silk wasn't white. It was the pale gold of Emmy's hair in summer, and knotted at the top. Her favorite hairpin, the one shaped like a dragonfly. The pin's wings trembled, then turned to face me. You've been searching for her, haven't you? The woman stood at the shrine's entrance now, backlit by paper lanterns that burned without fire. Up close, her kimono's pattern wasn't flowers. It was hundreds of tiny spiders, each woven from threads that moved when I blinked. Behind her, the shrine doors groaned open on their own. The darkness inside breathed out a gust of air so cold it made my teeth ache. Something scuttled, a sound like scissors snipping through a wedding dress. Some prayers, she whispered, are answered too late. The lantern light hit the cocoons just right. I saw their faces then, not just Emmy's. The missing bartender from Golden Guy, that college student whose photo had been taped to phone poles for months, and the other taxi drivers. Their mouths were sewn shut with silk, but their eyes weren't human anymore. Just clusters of black beads reflecting the lanterns, clicking as they tracked my movement. The woman's hand touched my cheek. Her skin was fever hot. Stay, she murmured. The web is kinder than the world. Her fingers left wet streaks on my skin. Where they touched, my flesh puckered into tiny white threads, like the first stitches of a seam. Behind her, the shrine doors creaked wider. The air that rolled out smelled like jasmine and the wet earth stink of a freshly dug grave. Something inside scuttled, a sound too large for any ordinary spider. And Emmy's cocoon shivered. I wrenched backward, tearing free. The woman's nails left burning streaks down my neck. Run then, she laughed. But the web is everywhere, Takeshi-san. Even in your taxi, even your skin. The last thing I saw before fleeing, her obi unspooling into the dark. Not silk, but webbing, connecting every cocoon to her waist like a puppeteer's strings. Detective Kobayashi found my taxi at dawn. Not at the shrine. That place doesn't appear on maps. Not even the ones the cops keep behind locked doors. No, my Crown was parked neatly outside the Hotel Mirai. Keys in the ignition, meter still running. The interior told a different story. Webs coated the rear seats like mold, not the fragile kind. These were thick as ship ropes, pulsing faintly as if something had recently squeezed through them. And a photo of Emmy? Gone. In its place, a single silk-wrapped fly, still twitching. The fly's wings buzzed against its cocoon as Kobayashi reached for it. The webbing split open, just enough to reveal a human eye staring back. The pupil slit like a cat's. Kobayashi told me later he knew what it meant, not just because of the other missing drivers, but because of the recording. My dashcam had kept rolling. The footage shows me screaming at something only I could see, clawing at my own neck. Then, and this is the part that Tex couldn't explain, the timestamp rewinds. Suddenly it's 3:03 a.m. again, and I'm calmly picking up the woman in red. Only now, with enhanced audio, you can hear what she really said when she got in. You've been driving my web for years, Takeshi-san. Tonight, you finally reached the center. In the footage's reflection, the Crown's rear window shows no passenger, just a mass of thrashing silk where the woman should be. Kobayashi played it for me in the hospital. I've been found shirtless in Kabukicho's red light district, my back crisscrossed with lacerations that forensics said matched no known blade. Spinnerets, the detective muttered, lighting a cigarette with shaking hands. They're called spinnerets. The cigarette smoke curled unnaturally, forming a perfect spiderweb between us before dissipating. That's when I showed him my palms. The cuts weren't just on my back. Tiny, precise holes had opened in my flesh. And if I squeezed them just right, silk came out. The nurse's scream brought orderlies. Kobayashi never filed that report, but he did leave something on my bedside table. A matchbook from Club Arachne. Its inside cover scribbled with an address in the old textile district. Beneath the address, drawn in what looked like dried blood, a stick-figure taxi with 8 legs. And one word, underlined 3 times. Eggs. The textile district after midnight smells of dye and decay. Kobayashi's matchbook led me to a converted silk mill, its boarded windows weeping rust-colored stains. The address wasn't written. It was burned into the cardboard. The numbers curled like spider legs. Inside, the loom still worked, not the way machines should. No electricity, no workers, just shadows moving in the rafters and the rhythmic click-clack of wooden frames knitting something that wasn't fabric. The floor trembled underfoot, not vibrations but pulses, like standing on a living throat as it swallowed. I stepped closer. The nearest loom wasn't threaded with cotton. It used hair, long strands, some still trailing scalp flakes, woven between skeins of that familiar gold-white silk. And the shuttles. God, the shuttles were finger bones, polished smooth from use. One bone shuttle twitched in its track, then turned to point at me. That's when I noticed the mannequins. Dozens of them posed between machines, not the sleek kind from department stores. These were flesh-colored, their faces molded into perfect screams, and they were dressed. Emmy's favorite yellow sundress, the bartender's striped apron, the college student's varsity jacket, all worn by figures with too many joints, all facing away, all breathing in unison. A sound above me, not rats. Something heavier moving between ceiling beams. I aimed my flashlight upward just as a droplet fell onto my cheek. Not water, egg sac fluid. The beam caught the underside of a massive web. Hundreds of pearlescent orbs hung there, each the size of a human head. And inside them, shapes, not spiders, people, floating in amniotic silk. Their features blurred but unmistakable. Emmy's lips moved behind the membrane, forming words I couldn't hear. The flashlight's beam darkened, as if the light itself was being spun into thread. Then, impossibly, the web began playing my own voice back to me. You've been driving my web for years. The flashlight died. From the darkness came a sound I'll never forget. The wet pop of an egg splitting open. Then Kobayashi's voice from the doorway, his lighter flaring. They're not making clothes, Sato. They're making skins. Behind him, the mill's exit was already veiled in fresh webbing. And standing just beyond it, a figure in a red kimono, her arms outstretched to catch whatever might emerge. Kobayashi's lighter wasn't just for cigarettes. The flame burned wrong, a blue so deep it made the shadows cringe. He held it between us like a knife as the mill's ceiling rained egg fluid. 1987, he said. First case, I worked where the victims were wrapped in silk. Found the patrolman who'd called it in chewing webbing from his own nostrils. The blue light revealed what daylight couldn't. The mill's walls weren't wood, but compressed cocoons, their surfaces moving with shallow breaths. The sack burst above us. Something thumped wetly onto a loom. Kobayashi didn't flinch. "They're not spiders," he whispered. "Not really. The old scrolls call them Yurishiro, things that wear the world like a skin." His sleeve slipped back, revealing scars and perfect ladder patterns. "Not from claws, from silk sutures. You think I'd let another detective touch these files?" His laugh was a dry rattle. "I married mine, beautiful girl from Kyoto, danced with her at the Obon festival." He rotated his wrist, and the blue flame caught something beneath his skin, threads glowing like fiber optics, pulsing from wrist to elbow. Right before she hatched, the lighter's flame caught something in his eyes, a glassy sheen, like his tears had hardened years ago. "Fire keeps them out of your thoughts, but you..." He nodded at my webbing palms. "You're already woven in." A skittering from the rafters. The mannequins' heads turned in unison, their screaming mouths now slack, waiting. Kobayashi pressed the lighter into my bleeding hand. "Burn it all," he said. Then the detective did something incomprehensible. He walked into the dark where the webbing was thickest, the last thing I saw before the flames. His tie fluttering like a trapped moth as a dozen pale arms embraced him from the shadows. And his final gift, the glowing threads under his skin unraveling, forming a bridge of light through the web for me to follow. The blue flame should have burned the mill to ash. It didn't. The fire crawled up the walls in unnatural spirals, leaving the webbing untouched. Because silk isn't the enemy, it's the medium. The loom's true horror wasn't the machine, but what it wove between worlds. Kobayashi's lighter died with a hiss. That's when I saw them. The detective's glowing threads, now embedded in the floor like fused lines, pulsing where the fire couldn't reach. Then the sound, 1,000 needles piercing fabric. The egg sacs were opening, not falling, not bursting, unstitching themselves along seams I hadn't noticed, like dolls made for disassembly. What emerged weren't spiders. They wore human skin, badly. Faces stretched over too many bones, fingers fused into claw-like appendages. Their movements were synchronized, as if a single consciousness operated them all. And their voices, Takeshi, not mimicking, remembering. The bartender's chuckle, the student's nervous cough, Emi's sleepy morning hum, all spliced together in a chorus that made my teeth vibrate. The nearest one touched my wrist. Its nails left trails of silk like slug mucus. The same substance now hardening inside my palms. "You're late," it said with Emi's lips. That's when the true hatching began. Their backs split open, not along the spine, but in perfect rectangles like unwrapped gifts. And inside, empty, just hollow space where organs should be. An invitation. The detective's final words took new meaning. They're making skins. Not to wear, to fill. Something moved in the rafters. Something too large to be contained by a single skin. Its shadow didn't match the thing casting it. 8 legs, yes, but also hands. Dozens of them, twitching in anticipation. The Emmy thing smiled with teeth like shaved bone. Behind it, the loom shuttles began moving on their own, weaving a new pattern. A Tokyo street map with my crown as the center pin. "We saved you a costume." Then the lights, real lights, electric and buzzing, flared to life. The mill wasn't abandoned. Workers stood at every loom. Their eyes reflected the firelight like cats, and every one of them was weaving with threads that trail from their own mouths, stitching their lips shut as they worked. The last thing I remember is running, not toward the exit, that vanished behind curtains of newborn silk, not toward the detective. What remained of him was already part of the loom, his mouth moving in silent prayer as threads poured from his sleeves. I ran toward her. The thing wearing Emi's face stood perfectly still, arms outstretched, not to embrace me, to measure. Behind her, the rafters pulsed with something ancient and hungry. Kobayashi's dying light still glowed along my palm. Not blue now, but gold, unraveling into a single thread that connected me to the loom, to every victim, to the heart of the web. "Stay," she whispered with my wife's voice. "Leave," she hissed with the Jorogumos. My hands. I couldn't tell where my skin ended and the webbing began anymore. The holes in my palms itched. When I scratched them, the mill's lights flickered in time. The thread from my palm grew taut. From the rafters, a dozen cocoons split open in unison. Not with a tear, but with the sigh of a bride stepping into her wedding kimono. That's when I understood. The taxi was never my cage. I was the driver, bringing them fresh silk, fresh voices, fresh skins. The Emmy thing pressed something into my sticky palm. A cracked taxi meter. Its numbers frozen at 3:03 a.m. As our fingers touched, the last of Kobayashi's light transferred to her. For one heartbeat, I saw her true prayer. Not a monster, but a weeping woman wrapped in her own web, forever spinning what she couldn't escape. You have fares to collect, she said. Or maybe I said it. The threads don't just bind you. They think through you. Now I'm back in my crown, the scent of jasmine thick as smoke. The radio plays a lullaby I don't remember learning. The rearview mirror shows 4 seats now, not 3. The empty one's headrest drips fresh silk. Sometimes, when the streetlights hit just right, I see them sitting behind me. Kobayashi with his glassy eyes, the bartender missing his laugh, Emmy with her dragonfly hairpin. Their lips move in unison, left at the soapland, right where the light ends. And always, always, one empty seat, waiting for you. Kabukicho. The whispers coil around my ears. The meter clicks on. It's always 3:03 a.m. somewhere. And the web loves new voices. The web is patient. It doesn't chase, it waits. In the hum of your fluorescent lights at 3 a.m. In the too perfect symmetry of a spider's silk. In the backseat of every taxi you'll ever hail, where the leather sticks just a little too much to your skin. Takeshi's still driving. The crown's doors are unlocked. And that 4th seat, it's not empty. You just can't see who's sitting there yet. Want to know how deep the silk goes? Follow the thread. Comment Jorogumo below if you'd risk the fare and turn on notifications. The next update might just arrive in your dreams or your rearview mirror.